Hi everyone, today I'm going to be swatching and reviewing the Himi 24 color gouache set. Now I've previously done a review on the Himi 56 gouache paint set and the Magic Fly 24 set gouache paint set. So I will link both of those reviews down in the description below, but we're going to get into this one today. And the thing I like about this one is right off the bat, it comes with a palette. Now the other two sets did not come with a palette. This one comes with a nice white palette, and there are different colors of this. So I think there's a blue one, a green one, and this pink one. So just so you know. So this is a nice palette. It's pretty thin. You got some extra spaces here to put your colors and a nice big mixing area. However, this top part is also plastic, so you could, of course, mix some colors on here, but you'd want to make sure that everything's dry before you'd put your cover back on. Now, another difference I'm noticing right off the bat between those palettes and these is the other palettes had sort of this foam piece on top here, and I'm assuming that's for when you close it down, it will sort of seal the palette a little bit better and keep it that airtight type palette, because I'm noticing where it seals on the sides, there's a pretty good seal, but then when you look on the other side, it looks like there's a little gap there, like it's open. So I'm hoping you're able to see that. So both ends here, there is a gap. So I don't know how airtight it is, but these little things that lock on, they are pretty good. Like they do lock on pretty tight. Comes with a little thank you card. So that's pretty cute. And of course, I love the colorful background. This set also comes with some brushes. Now, I previously did buy some of the Himi brushes because I wanted to try them out with the other sets. So I'll be testing these out to see if they are the same as the other brushes or maybe like a new type. So these are the different brushes that come in it. This is a size 8 more filbert type brush. This is a size 6 flat brush, and then you get a size 4 round brush. And I'm going to keep that tip on it for now. And it's nice because they can fit right in there. And then your palette fits on top and you can close it all up. Now these are the traditional size jelly gouache, so it's 30 mils. Now the other ones I had to mix them up as I was opening them because there was sort of this watery film, and I'm assuming that's maybe part of the binder. So I just mixed them up and then they worked great. So I'm going to go ahead and make a swatch sheet for this, and then we'll go ahead, open these up, swatch them. And I'm just looking to see if there is the English names on these anywhere, and I don't see them, so I may have to go on the site or somewhere like that to find a name for these. Okay, so I just want to show you guys real quick that on the bottom of the palette I did find this color chart, and it does have the colors, and they are in this range when they come in the palette. So what I ended up doing was taking all of the cups out and writing the colors on them. And then I reorganized them in, you know, a pattern, a color layout that I want. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead, open these up, swatch them now, and then we'll, you know, look at the swatches, and then we'll get into some kind of artwork using them. So this is the color layout that I chose for these palettes, and this is normally the way I go from like my whites, yellows, oranges, reds, pinks, purples, blues, greens, and then my browns, my ochres, to the black. So that's usually even my watercolor palettes. For whatever reason, this is how I like to set them up. Now these swatches laid down really, really nicely on this paper, as you can see. The only one that gave me trouble opening it was the acid blue. And then as you can see, that ultramarine kind of made a little oopsie here and plopped, but I was able to lift that just about completely off. And ultramarine is known to be a little bit more of a staining color, so I'm not surprised I couldn't lift it all the way off. And then I just wrote back that yellow green, no problem. Now a lot of these colors are pretty pure colors, except there are a few that have some white, you know, mixed into them. But I was surprised, you know, a few of them are quite opaque. So what I did here was I did a pure opaque with just the gouache, and then I did a watered down version of it, just so I could see how opaque or how not opaque it was either way. Now, from what I can see, all of these colors are the same that you would get in the Mia 56 set, except for two. So the pale purple and the pale green. And I'm just going to bring this out here. This is my swatch for this. So the pale purple, I think, is a mix between the lilac and the violet. It's not quite as dark as this color, but I think they've mixed it, you know, a little bit in between, but I actually kind of like this more than the lilac color. And then for the pale green, we've got sort of maybe light green. I would say it's closest to. It's not called pale green, but I think this has a little bit more yellow in it, where this one has a little bit more of like a greener color in it. Now, one green I wish that did come in this set was sort of an olive green like this, but that'll be easy enough to mix up. So again, I do have this review video out, the Mia 56 gouache paint set and the Magic Fly 24 gouache paint set. And I would say the colors are fairly similar to the Magic Fly set, except the Magic Fly ends up being a little bit more opaque because I think they mix a little bit more white into most of their colors. They're not quite as bright as some of these, so go check out that one as well if you're interested. But what I'm going to do now is go ahead and pick an artwork, and I'm going to sketch it out, and then I will time-lapse it as I give you my final thoughts on this. And now I did do a flower for the last two sets, but I'm kind of thinking maybe I'll mix it up and pick like a dessert or something, but I don't know. I'll see what I can find and we'll get right into it. So I figured I'd give you my thoughts on this Himi Mia 24 gouache paint set while you're watching me paint this raspberry cupcake. Now I did use these gouache paints and just these gouache paints to paint this cupcake, and spoiler alert, I love these gouache jelly cups. Now, I've tried the Mia 56 gouache paint set and the Magic Fly 24 gouache paint set, and I'll link those reviews down below as well. And I did a painting for each of those too. Now, this Himi gouache, I think it's the same formula as the Mia. I want to say they're all the same company, but I'm not 100% sure. First of all, I think the color selection for this 24 set was perfect. There's enough variety in there. You've got some yellows, oranges, reds, some lighter colors, a nice selection of blues, and the greens. The only green I was really missing was sort of an olivey toned green, but as you could see in this demonstration, I was able to mix that with no problem. These paints mix well on their own, as well as mix with each other beautifully. I was able to get some beautiful tones and different variations by mixing the colors together. They also thin down really nicely, and even when you thin them down, they're still quite opaque, as you'll see with the icing. I sort of laid down a really watery version of the medium yellow and earth yellow mixed together. And then I went over top and dropped some of those colors in where I could see it a little more warmer and a little more yellow ochre color, and they were really opaque and just smoothed out really nicely. Also, as you'll see when I'm doing the wrapper, they glaze over themselves really nicely and don't re-wet the bottom layers. Now, I was trying to do the bottom layers a little more watered down because I know if you put thick gouache down at first, it can lift itself. But in the areas where I went a little bit thicker, trying to darken up some of those shadows in the wrapper, it did not re-wet or move when I went over top to glaze some more color. Now, I really like this cupcake. I was going for a more painterly feel, and I was trying to sort of dab the colors together to get them to blend, and I really like the effect that I've gotten here. These gouache paints not only blend well when you're doing wet on wet, but they also blend well when you're doing dry on wet. As you'll see, I was able to soften out a lot of the edges. I could go back over some of the raspberries and kind of blend those hard edges together. Now, one thing you'll notice is I left my pencil sketch lines for the icing part quite dark, and even though I covered up most of it with that initial wash of the medium yellow and earth yellow, I was able to still go in and erase my eraser lines. Now, this can be hard sometimes with watercolor. I find once you go over top of your pencil sketch with watercolor, sometimes it almost like sets that pencil into the paper. So I make sure that I lighten my sketch up as much as possible before I go over top with watercolor. I definitely like this formula better than the Magic Fly 24 gouache, and if you guys watch that review, you'll know that I found it really hard because a lot of that was too opaque, so every time I'd go over with another color, it was just completely covering my layers before, whereas this one, it is opaque, but it's easier to control, I find, and to thin down. So every time I'd go over with a little bit more color, the bottom layers were still showing through even though this is opaque. It's weird, but I really like the effect that I was getting. Now, if I had to compare this 24 set to the 56 set, I think it just depends how many colors you want. I kind of feel like the 56 set can be a little overwhelming because there are so many colors in here, whereas a 12 set might not have enough colors. So I find this 24 set has just the perfect amount. It's got a lot of the colors that I would reach for. The only thing is I wish they would have included 2 whites because I find you will go through white a little bit more. However, I don't feel like there would be a color in this set that I would pull out to replace with an extra white. So I just wish maybe you could buy the Himi white jelly cup on its own, and maybe you can, I just haven't found it yet, but you can certainly always replace it with a different white from a tube once you finish it. I also really like the fact that this set comes with a nice white palette and some brushes, and I did use the brushes for this painting, and I really enjoy the Himi brushes. They are really nice. They're stiff enough to be able to blend the paint out nicely on your palette, but they're also soft enough when you want to go onto the paper and get some lighter washes. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and let me know down below if you use gouache or not and what your favorite brand is. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next one.